June 12, 1944. The morning mist clung to the ridges overlooking the French village. Easy Company had been positioned there for nearly a week, holding the high ground against German forces that had entrenched themselves in the valley below. The men were tense, bodies fatigued from constant patrols and sporadic firefights, but disciplined. Every breath, every movement was calculated. Lieutenant Richard Winters, 27, from Pennsylvania, moved along the line. His men had been through long days of continuous engagement. He checked their weapons, ensured their ammunition was accounted for, and verified fields of fire. The ridge overlooked a network of hedgerows, stone walls, and the remnants of bombed-out buildings, perfect defensive terrain if used wisely. Winters knew the Germans would test them, probing their positions in small attacks before committing to anything larger. At 7:30, scouts reported movement along the western slope. A small group of German infantry, likely attempting to flank the company, had been spotted using hedgerows as cover. Winters immediately divided his men into 3 defensive sectors. Each sector had overlapping fields of fire. Men crouched behind stone walls and in shallow foxholes, their rifles ready. By 08:02, the first shots rang out. A German soldier had strayed too close to the ridge line. Winters's men fired with precision. One fell, another dove back into cover. The engagement was brief, over in less than a minute, but it set the tone. Silence in combat was rarely peaceful. Tension lingered, and every second counted. The morning passed in intermittent skirmishes. German patrols tested Easy Company's vigilance. Winters moved among his men, correcting stances, adjusting angles of fire, and ensuring wounded were moved safely. By mid-morning, the enemy had retreated to the far tree line, regrouping for a larger push. At 11:15, German artillery opened up from the valley. Explosions rocked the ridge, sending debris into the air. Windows in the village shattered. Dust and smoke filled the air, stinging eyes and making visibility difficult. Winters ordered his men to take cover. The barrage lasted 10 minutes, and though it landed near their positions, casualties were minimal. The psychological effect, however, was significant. By early afternoon, reinforcements arrived from neighboring units. Fresh troops brought ammunition and support. Winters coordinated with their officers, marking sectors, integrating men into defensive positions, and emphasizing communication. Even experienced soldiers could falter under unclear orders. Then, at 14:20, the Germans launched a coordinated assault along the western edge of the village. Light machine guns opened fire, and infantry advanced through hedgerows and broken terrain. Winters directed his men with calm authority, calling out targets, adjusting fire, and maintaining order. The first wave was repelled. The Germans tried another approach. Winters shifted his men strategically, using terrain for cover. Within 20 minutes, the assault had been neutralized. Several enemy soldiers lay dead or wounded on the field, but Easy Company had no casualties. By 1700, the ridge was secured. Ammunition was counted, wounded attended, and positions reinforced. Winters walked the perimeter, ensuring every man had water and rations, and that no one had been overlooked. The day had tested every skill he and his men possessed: patience, observation, coordination, and restraint under pressure. The next day, June 13th, began humid and overcast. Easy Company was still holding the ridge, their vigilance unbroken. The men had slept in short shifts, the night filled with distant artillery and the occasional bird call. Winters inspected positions at first light, checking weapons and reviewing the terrain. The enemy was quiet, but he knew silence was rarely permanent. At 7:30, Scouts spotted small enemy movements attempting infiltration through hedgerows. Winters divided his men into sectors again, emphasizing crossfire, concealment, and readiness. By 8:02, a lone German soldier had approached too close. Precise rifle fire from Easy Company ended the threat. Artillery barrages resumed intermittently throughout the morning, but Winters's men stayed disciplined. Each explosion tested nerves, but their focus never wavered. Midday brought another patrol, and brief skirmishes erupted in small clusters across the ridge. Winters moved among the men, correcting stances and ensuring wounded soldiers were secured. By 1500, German forces regrouped. Small infiltration attempts had failed, morale likely shaken. Winters used the lull to inspect supplies and ammunition, ensuring readiness for another possible attack. Every detail mattered. Nothing could be left to chance. June 14th brought renewed attacks. Germans tried to flank from the north, advancing in small groups under cover of trees and hedgerows. Easy Company responded with disciplined volleys, halting their approach. Winters coordinated the defense, shifting troops as needed. By mid-morning, the ridge was secure. Casualties were minimal. Enemy forces retreated. The following days passed in a cycle of vigilance, occasional skirmishes, and methodical patrolling. Winters emphasized observation and terrain mastery, ensuring that every man understood their sector and responsibilities. Even in the absence of enemy contact, preparation never wavered. By June 17th, Easy Company had inflicted significant casualties on German forces while maintaining low losses. The ridge was theirs, held not by luck, but through preparation, discipline, and precise execution. Winters' leadership had instilled confidence and competence in every man under his command. The aftermath of the campaign offered a moment of reflection. Soldiers rotated back for rest, medical attention, and reassignment. Winters reviewed every engagement, analyzing successes and mistakes. Every observation was documented, every lesson preserved for future operations. His meticulous records became essential references for training, ensuring that knowledge gained on the ridge would not be lost. In the months and years that followed, Winters transitioned to instructional roles, training new soldiers in leadership, small unit tactics, and battlefield awareness. The principles proven on the ridge, vigilance, patience, and decisive action, were incorporated into military doctrine. Lessons learned in France influenced infantry strategy, emphasizing the combination of preparation, observation, and disciplined fire. Winters never sought recognition. He documented his experiences in journals, detailed accounts of every maneuver, engagement, and decision. These records remained largely unknown outside military circles, but they became invaluable to historians studying mid-20th century infantry tactics and leadership. Years later, Winters watched the evolution of warfare, from bolt-action rifles to semi-automatic rifles, to mechanized warfare and precision-guided munitions. The lessons of the ridge endured. Patient observation, adaptation to terrain, and clear-headed decision-making remained as critical as ever. He lived a long life, mentoring, writing, and advising on military strategy. The ridge became more than a battlefield. It became a symbol of resilience, leadership, and human resolve. Though the men of Easy Company returned to civilian life, the lessons they learned and the decisions they made continued to shape future generations of soldiers. The ridge, once a chaotic battlefield, had become a testament to preparation, discipline, and courage. Winters' leadership and the steadfastness of his men left an enduring legacy, proving that clarity, patience, and skill could triumph even under the most intense and uncertain conditions. And though the land had returned to peaceful quiet, the story of Easy Company's vigilance and endurance lived on, in military records, in historical analysis, and in the memories of those who survived to tell the tale.